The Meridian High Council Chamber, usually a beacon of serenity with its crystalline architecture reaching toward the twin moons of Meridia Prime, now held only silence and fear. Councillor Vina stood at the observation window, her iridescent scales dulled with exhaustion, as she watched another refugee ship descend through the atmosphere. It was the 12th one today. 3 more colonies have gone dark, Admiral Kress announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. The holographic display at the center of the room showed the steady advance of an unknown force through meridian space. Red markers indicated destroyed worlds, while yellow showed those that had been evacuated. The pattern was clear, methodical, inevitable extinction. The Meridians had ruled their sector of space for over 10,000 years. Their mastery of gravitational manipulation and dimensional physics had made them legends among the younger races. But now, facing an enemy that seemed to bend the very laws of reality, all their advanced technology proved worthless. The Void Harvesters, Vina whispered, using the name given to their mysterious attackers. They've adapted to every defense, every weapon we've developed. It's as if they're learning from our very thoughts. The enemy ships defied conventional physics. They appeared as tears in space itself, dark wounds in reality that consumed everything in their path. Energy weapons passed through them harmlessly. Matter simply disappeared at their touch. The Meridian fleet, once the pride of the galaxy, had been reduced to running desperate evacuation missions. There might be another option, said Researcher Tall, the youngest member of the council. All eyes turned to him, hope and skepticism mooring in their expressions. We've been monitoring a species in the spiral arm of the galaxy. They call themselves humans. Dismissive murmurs filled the chamber. Humans were known to the Meridians, of course, a young race that had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. Their technology was crude, their civilization fractious, their planets few. Their primitives, spat Defense Minister Locke. Their most advanced ships would be toys compared to what we've already lost against the Harvesters. Tall activated another hologram, this one showing surveillance footage from Earth's recent history. Look closer, he insisted. They've achieved in centuries what took us millennia. More importantly, they think differently. Their scientists break rules we consider fundamental. Their warriors employ strategies that defy conventional logic. They're unpredictable. Vina watched the footage with growing interest. Where Meridian weapons followed perfect mathematical formulas, human weapons were crude but effective. Where Meridian ships moved with calculated precision, human vessels performed maneuvers that seemed suicidal yet somehow worked. We've been fighting this war with logic and precision, Tall continued. But the Harvesters seem to understand our every move before we make it. Perhaps what we need isn't more advanced technology, but something completely different, something unpredictable. You're suggesting we ask these humans for help? Locke's voice dripped with disdain. They would be obliterated. We're already being obliterated, Vina cut in, her voice sharp. The chamber fell silent again. Our perfect logic, our advanced technology, our millennia of knowledge, none of it has saved us. Perhaps it's time to try imperfection. The debate raged for hours. The Meridian High Council, faced with the imminent destruction of their civilization, argued over the unthinkable, asking for help from a species they had long considered beneath their notice. Finally, Vina made the decision. Prepare a quantum transmission to Earth, she commanded. Tell them everything. Show them what we face. And, she paused, swallowing her pride. Beg them for help. As the transmission was prepared, Vina returned to the window. Another refugee ship was landing, its hull bearing the scars of a narrow escape. The Void Harvesters were less than a month from reaching Meridia Prime. Their perfect civilization was crumbling, their powerful technology useless. Their only hope now lay with a species that still fought with chemical explosives and nuclear fission, a species that seemed to thrive on chaos and impossibility. As the quantum transmission departed toward Earth, Vina wondered if the humans' apparent primitive nature might be exactly what they needed. What they needed wasn't perfection. They needed something the Void Harvesters couldn't predict. They needed humanity's chaos. The quantum transmission from the Meridians arrived at Earth's Deep Space Reception Array in the middle of the night. Dr. Sarah Chen was on duty, expecting another routine shift of monitoring background radiation and cataloging stellar phenomena. Instead, her screens lit up with patterns she'd never seen before. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the signal through multiple verification protocols. But the data remained consistent. Someone was reaching out from over 30,000 light-years away, and they were asking for help. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Council chamber in Geneva was filled to capacity. Military leaders, scientists, and government officials from every nation watched in stunned silence as the Meridian transmission played out before them. The images of the Void Harvesters consuming entire worlds sent chills through the assembly. Admiral James Rodriguez stood up first when the transmission ended. "They think we're primitive," he said, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "That's good. That means they don't know about Project Phoenix." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Project Phoenix had been humanity's best-kept secret for the past decade, a revolutionary breakthrough in quantum physics that had changed everything they thought they knew about space warfare. While the rest of the galaxy saw humanity tinkering with fusion drives and railguns, deep within the asteroid belt, they had been perfecting something entirely different. "The Meridians are looking at this all wrong," Dr. Chen explained, now standing before the council. "They're trying to fight these Void Harvesters with conventional physics, even if it's incredibly advanced conventional physics. But what if the key isn't fighting them at all? What if it's about understanding them?" The holographic display shifted to show the Phoenix prototypes, sleek ships that looked deceptively simple on the outside. But their true power lay in their ability to manipulate the quantum fabric of space itself, not through the Meridians' precise calculations, but through controlled chaos. "The Meridians perfect everything," Chen continued. "Every calculation, every maneuver, every response is optimized. That's why the Harvesters can predict them so easily. But humans, we're messy. We're intuitive. We make impossible decisions based on gut feelings and crazy hopes. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need." General Sarah O'Connor, commander of the Earth Defense Force, stepped forward. "We've been preparing for something like this, even if we didn't know it. The Phoenix ships aren't just weapons. They're a new way of thinking about space itself. The Meridians see space as something to be measured and controlled. We see it as something to be surfed, to be danced with." The council chamber erupted in debate. Sending their most advanced technology to help an alien civilization was a massive risk. If they failed, Earth would lose its only defense against future threats. But if they succeeded, humanity would prove itself on the galactic stage. Finally, Council President Chen Wei rose from his seat. The chamber fell silent. For centuries, humanity has looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know we're not, and our neighbors need our help. We've spent our entire history learning to think differently, to find solutions where others see only problems. Perhaps that's why this moment has come. He paused, looking around the chamber. "The Meridians call us primitive because we don't follow their rules. But maybe that's exactly why we can succeed where they failed. Prepare the Phoenix fleet. We're going to show the galaxy what humanity can really do." The next 48 hours saw the greatest mobilization in human history. The Phoenix fleet, hidden in asteroid bases throughout the solar system, emerged into the light. 12 ships, each carrying technology that defied conventional understanding of physics, crewed by men and women who had trained for years for a moment they never thought would come. As the fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Chen stood at the observation window of the Geneva complex, watching the ships gather in high orbit. They didn't look impressive compared to the massive Meridian vessels shown in the transmission. They didn't shine with advanced technology or bristle with obvious weapons. But they carried something more powerful: humanity's unique ability to embrace chaos, to think impossibly, to defy predictions. The Phoenix fleet would bring hope to the Meridians, but they would also bring something the Void Harvesters had never encountered before: human unpredictability. As the ships disappeared into quantum space, Dr. Chen smiled. The galaxy was about to learn that being primitive wasn't always a disadvantage. The Phoenix fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Meridian system, a dozen dark shapes against the burning light of unfamiliar stars. Captain Maya Patel stood on the bridge of the flagship Phoenix 1, taking in the sight of Meridia Prime's twin moons through the main viewport. But it was the massive tiers in space, the Void Harvesters, that drew everyone's attention. "They're beautiful in a terrifying way," Lieutenant Jack Torres whispered, watching the dimensional ruptures move with impossible grace through the darkness. The Harvesters had already consumed 3 of Meridia's outer defense platforms, leaving nothing but empty space where massive stations had once stood. The Meridian response to their arrival was immediate. A transmission burst through their communications. "Unidentified human vessels, you are entering an active combat zone. Your ships are not rated for this level of conflict. Retreat immediately." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "This is Captain Maya Patil of the Earth Defense Force Phoenix Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help." There was a long pause before the response came. "Captain Patel, this is Admiral Kress of the Meridian Defense Force. While we appreciate your courage, your vessels are no match for the Void Harvesters. The smallest of their ships is larger than your entire fleet." "Size isn't everything, Admiral," Maya replied, her fingers dancing over the quantum interface of her command chair. "Request permission to demonstrate." Before the Meridians could respond, one of the Void Harvesters turned its attention to the human fleet. It moved like liquid darkness, reality bending around its edges as it approached. On conventional sensors, it barely registered. A ship that wasn't quite there, existing between dimensions. "All Phoenix ships, initiate protocol chaos," Maya commanded. "Remember your training. Don't think like soldiers. Think like artists." The Phoenix fleet broke formation, but not in any pattern the Meridians would recognize as military tactics. Each ship moved as if it had a mind of its own, following paths that seemed random, even dangerous. The Harvester paused, its movement becoming erratic for the first time. "Now," Maya ordered, "quantum web deployment." From each Phoenix ship, streams of energy erupted. Not weapons in the conventional sense, but carefully controlled streams of quantum chaos. Where Meridian weapons tried to destroy the Harvesters with pure force, these streams didn't attack at all. They danced around the Harvester, creating a web of controlled uncertainty. The effect was immediate. The Harvester's dimensional shifting began to falter. It tried to predict the quantum stream's movements, but there was no pattern to predict. Human operators guided the streams based on instinct and creativity rather than calculations. "Impossible." Admiral Kress's voice crackled over the comm. "You're destabilizing its dimensional field." "But how?" "Your technology is primitive. We stopped trying to be perfect," Maya explained, watching as the Harvester writhed in the quantum web. "These ships don't fight against chaos. They embrace it. Each quantum stream is guided by human intuition, creating patterns too random for the Harvesters to adapt to." The Harvester began to collapse in on itself, its dimensional shifting failing as the quantum chaos prevented it from maintaining its form. With a silent flash, it imploded, leaving behind nothing but ordinary space. Silence filled the communications channel. The Meridian fleet hung motionless, their perfect formation forgotten as they processed what they had just witnessed. Finally, Admiral Kress spoke again, his voice holding a new note of respect. "Captain Patel, I believe we have much to discuss, and I believe we owe humanity an apology." The next few hours were a flurry of activity as human and Meridian forces began to coordinate. The Meridians brought their advanced technology and millennia of knowledge, while the humans brought their unpredictability and quantum chaos technology. But more importantly, they brought a new way of thinking. "Your ships," researcher Tall observed, "now aboard Phoenix 1. They're not just technologically different. Your entire approach to space combat, to physics itself, it's primitive, Maya suggested with a smile. Revolutionary, Tal corrected. We've spent thousands of years perfecting our understanding of the universe. But you've learned to dance with it instead. As more void harvesters began to notice the small human fleet, Maya watched her crews prepare for battle. They weren't the largest or most advanced ships in the galaxy, but they carried humanity's greatest weapons: creativity, adaptability, and the courage to embrace chaos rather than fight it. The real battle was about to begin, and for the first time since the void harvesters appeared, the Meridians felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. 2 weeks into the combined defense of Meridia Prime, the war room aboard the Meridian flagship Eternal Light had transformed. Holographic displays showing perfect battle formations now shared space with hastily drawn human tactical sketches. Meridian officers in their immaculate uniforms stood shoulder to shoulder with humans in their practical combat gear, all studying the movements of the void harvesters. Dr. Elena Santos, Earth's leading quantum physicist, stood before a group of bewildered Meridian scientists. "You're thinking about predictability all wrong," she explained, manipulating a 3D model of quantum streams. "The harvesters aren't just adapting to your attacks, they're adapting to your patterns of thought." The evidence was becoming clear. Every time the Meridians deployed their precisely calculated strategies, the harvesters would counter them perfectly. But when human ships intervened with their seemingly chaotic maneuvers, the harvesters struggled to respond. "It's like a dance," Lieutenant Sarah Chen explained to a group of Meridian pilots. "Don't plan your next move. Feel it. The moment you create a pattern, they'll exploit it." The Meridians were struggling with this concept. Millennia of rigid training and perfect execution had to be unlearned. But the results were undeniable. When Meridian ships began incorporating random elements into their tactics, their survival rates tripled. Captain Maya Patel and Admiral Kress stood together, watching the latest battle simulation. A mixed squadron of human and Meridian ships was practicing the new hybrid tactics they'd developed. The Meridian ships provided the power and advanced technology, while the humans added the element of unpredictability. "I still don't understand how your quantum web technology works," Kress admitted. "Our best scientists say it should be impossible." Maya smiled. "That's exactly why it works. We stopped trying to understand the impossible and learned to use it instead." The breakthrough came during a routine defense of one of Meridia's outer colonies. A young human pilot, acting on pure instinct, used her ship's quantum streams not to attack a harvester, but to mimic its dimensional distortions. The harvester, for the first time, showed signs of confusion. "They're not invincible," Dr. Santos announced in an emergency council meeting. "They're pattern seekers. They survive by predicting and countering any organized attack. But when faced with true chaos, not just random actions, but deliberate unpredictability, they can't adapt." The Meridians began to understand. Their greatest strength, their perfect, predictable nature, had been their greatest weakness against this enemy. But humanity's perceived primitive nature, their tendency to act on intuition and emotion, made them the perfect counter to the harvesters' abilities. The next phase of the war took shape. Meridian ships were retrofit with simplified versions of the quantum web technology. Human pilots began training Meridian crews in the art of unpredictable combat. The rigid hierarchy of the Meridian fleet gave way to a more flexible command structure, allowing for split-second decisions based on instinct rather than protocol. But the most significant change was philosophical. The Meridians, who had prided themselves on their mastery over chaos, learned to embrace it. They watched in amazement as human crews treated space combat like an art form, each battle a unique performance that could never be replicated. "Your species," researcher Tal said to Maya one evening, "we thought you were primitive because you hadn't mastered the chaos of the universe. But you never needed to master it. You learned to become one with it." The tide of the war was turning. The Void Harvesters, for the first time, began to retreat from certain engagements. Their perfect predictive abilities meant nothing against an enemy that defied prediction. The combined fleet pushed them back from Meridian space, one system at a time. But the Harvesters were not defeated yet. As if recognizing the true threat that humanity posed, they began to gather their forces for one massive assault. Long-range sensors detected hundreds of dimensional tiers forming at the edge of Meridian space, the largest concentration of Harvesters ever seen. Maya stood with Admiral Kress as they reviewed the intelligence. The coming battle would determine not just the fate of the Meridian civilization, but potentially the future of the galaxy. The question was no longer whether humanity's approach would work, but whether they could implement it on a large enough scale to face this final threat. They're afraid, Maya realized, studying the Harvester formations. For the first time in their existence, they've encountered something they can't predict, something they can't control. Then let's show them, Kress replied, his voice holding a very human-like determination. Exactly why chaos should be embraced, not feared. The combined fleet of human and Meridian ships hung in formation above Meridia Prime, facing the largest gathering of Void Harvesters ever recorded. Thousands of dimensional tiers scoured space itself, each one representing a force that had, until recently, been considered unstoppable. Captain Maya Patel stood at the center of the Joint Command Center, now established in a space station orbiting Meridia Prime's largest moon. The holographic display showed both fleets, the Harvesters' overwhelming numbers against the smaller but unified force of humans and Meridians. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Torres announced. Around the command center, humans and Meridians worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of this final confrontation. Admiral Kress stepped forward, his iridescent scales reflecting the holographic light. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad we were wrong about humanity. He turned to Maya. Your species' gift for chaos may save us all. The plan they had developed was audacious, combining Meridian precision with human unpredictability on a massive scale. Every ship in the fleet had been equipped with quantum web generators, but they wouldn't be used as weapons, at least not in the conventional sense. All ships initiate protocol harmony, Maya commanded. The name had been Dr. Santo's idea, a recognition that true power came not from fighting chaos, but from becoming one with it. The fleet began to move, but not in any formation the galaxy had ever seen before. Meridian ships, their advanced technology guided by human intuition, created patterns that seemed to defy physics itself. The quantum webs they generated didn't target the Harvesters directly. Instead, they began to weave something larger, something that had never been attempted before. They're responding, researcher Tall reported, watching the Harvesters' movements. The dimensional tiers began to shift, trying to predict and counter the fleet's strategy. But there was no strategy to counter, only organized chaos, guided by human creativity and Meridian precision. The quantum webs expanded, forming a vast network of controlled uncertainty. Where single ships had once created small areas of unpredictability, the entire fleet now worked together to generate a field that encompassed vast stretches of space. The Harvesters found themselves caught in a dance they couldn't predict, a pattern that changed faster than they could adapt. Now, Maya ordered, Phase 2. The Meridian ships began to pulse their gravity drives in sequences that would have once been considered dangerously imprecise. The human vessels added their quantum fluctuations to the mix. The combined effect was like a symphony of chaos, each ship adding its own unique note to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The Harvesters' response was immediate and dramatic. Their dimensional tiers began to fluctuate wildly as they lost their ability to maintain stability in space that no longer followed predictable rules. Some began to collapse in on themselves, while others merged uncontrollably with their neighbors. It's working, Dr. Santos exclaimed. They can't maintain their form in space they can't predict. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than an hour. One by one, the Void Harvesters disappeared, their existence dependent on a level of cosmic predictability that no longer existed within the quantum field. When the last dimensional tear vanished, a profound silence fell over the command center. "Is it over?" someone whispered. Maya studied the sensor readings carefully before answering. "They're gone. Not destroyed. They simply can't exist in space that embraces chaos instead of fighting it." The celebration that followed transcended species and civilizations. Meridians and humans embraced, their differences forgotten in the joy of survival and victory. But it was more than just a military triumph. It was the birth of something new. In the months that followed, the alliance between Earth and Meridia Prime deepened. The Meridians began to incorporate human philosophies into their society, learning to balance their love of precision with an appreciation for uncertainty. Humanity, in turn, gained access to advanced Meridian technology, but maintained their unique approach to using it. The Phoenix fleet became the model for a new kind of space force, one that combined the best of both civilizations. Young Meridians signed up to train with human instructors, learning to trust their instincts alongside their calculations. Human scientists worked with Meridian researchers to explore new ways of understanding the universe, ways that embraced both order and chaos. A year after the battle, Maya stood with Admiral Kress in the newly constructed Alliance Academy on Meridia Prime. Below them, human and Meridian cadets trained together, their differences becoming their greatest strength. "We thought we needed to perfect the universe," Kress mused. "You showed us that perfection was never the answer." Maya watched a young Meridian cadet successfully complete a chaos-guided flight maneuver, her movements showing both precision and creativity. "And you showed us that chaos without purpose is just randomness. Together, we found something better than either of us had alone." The legacy of the Void Harvester War wasn't just victory over a seemingly invincible enemy. It was the realization that true strength comes not from perfection or chaos, but from learning to dance between the two. Humanity had answered a desperate call for help, and in doing so, had not only saved a civilization, but helped create a new way of seeing the universe itself. As the twin moons of Meridia Prime rose over the horizon, their light fell on a galaxy forever changed by the day humanity proved that being primitive sometimes meant being exactly what the universe needed.